you become like the people you associate with because you pick up their habits. All right. And the best way to remember it, and this is true, okay, this is not just trying to be funny. The best diet in the world is hanging around skinny people. Okay. You hang around skinny people, you'll be exercising more, you'll be eating salads. Man, the pounds will just melt off. You won't even notice it.
Welcome, everyone, to the next interview. I am joined today live and in person with my friend, Ruben Gonzalez. So excited to be here today. We actually, funny enough, tried this a couple times virtually, and I think it was God and the universe saying, you guys need to meet up and do this live, because it didn't work. So we get to do this live, which is way more fun anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
So pumped to have you here, Ruben. I'll give a quick background about Ruben. You can check out more on the show notes, but four-time Olympian in the sport of luge. Don't call him a luger, by the way. No. He's got a good story about that. Don't call him a luger. But he is the only person in history to do 4 different Olympics in 4 different decades. He's going for his 5th Olympics in 5 decades at the age of 61. Has a fascinating story that we're going to dive into today because, as I always say, like, you want to be the best, you learn from the best, right? And the stories and what Ruben in particular today has overcome and what he's fought through and what he continues to just speak around the world and tell people about. So again, more in the show notes about his background, about his journey, but Ruben, man, thanks so much.
Oh, no, I'm pumped.
So good.
So I live in Colorado Springs and Matt lives in Denver, basically 50 miles away. And, but Zoom wasn't powerful enough for that connection. So we had to do it. I'll tell you, I had a podcast. I was a guest for a podcast in India. The first time we tried to do it, and another one today.
Yes.
So I don't know, just doesn't like Colorado or something.
It was meant to be. But Ruben, I want to dive into how you got to the Olympics first, because your story is quite unusual. It's, as a matter of fact, way different than what people think is a traditional path to the Olympics. And so talk to me a little bit about kind of your journey, because it's not one of those things where you popped out of the womb with a luge sled and all of a sudden achieved your dreams later on. So
yeah, doing bench presses in my crib.
Exactly. But how'd you end up getting to the Olympics, and just what's that journey look like?
Sure. I'm definitely an unlikely Olympian. You'd expect an Olympian to be a great athlete, fast, strong, powerful, and that's not me at all. I'm all slow twitch muscle, just like Rudy. If you ever saw the movie Rudy, it's a lot of heart, no body. And so, and a lot of desire and willingness to pay the price, but no body to back it up. Mm-hmm. Caught the dream when I was 10 years old. I was, watching the Olympics on TV, and I was drawn to the Olympians. And what drew me to them wasn't their athleticism; it was their spirit, it was their heart. Right away, I realized this is a group of people that are willing to train for years and years, no guarantees of success, and then some of them make it. I thought, man, you got to be so strong to put yourself through that. And they became my heroes, right? And I put them up on a pedestal, and I became an Olympic expert. I started reading everything about the Olympics. I knew all the stories. I was really an Olympic groupie, okay? And so I had all this desire. That was going to be my dream, but it was a pipe dream because I wasn't even getting picked to play kickball, right? I mean, it was pretty bad.
We're not getting picked for kickball.
Man, that's pretty sad.
Yeah, you got to wait.
I know. And so my dad, I like to read books. And my dad, he said, why don't you read some biographies? If you'll study the lives of great people, you'll figure out what works, what doesn't work in life, because success leaves clues. And I started reading them, and I liked them right away because they were just like the adventure stories that I always read. Mm-hmm. And I realized real quickly that every biography is the same story. It's a story someone had a dream, then they went through a struggle, and they had a victory. Right? It's just like a movie, really. Dream, struggle, victory. And so I started thinking, okay, what's one thing all these people have in common? Maybe something I can work on. And what I kept seeing was they were perseverant. They refused to quit, right? I mean, they were just a bunch of hardheads. And my mom always called me a hardhead, so I thought maybe I got what it takes. Gave me hope.
Right.
And so at 12 years old, I made a decision to change my life. I mean, and success is a decision. Sooner or later, you get sick and tired of being sick and tired. And you start doing the things you weren't willing to do before, right? You start facing those fears, fear of failure, fear of the unknown. And you start realizing, wow, that fear was just in my head. That wasn't hard at all. And you start growing, right? Because now you got a bigger space. And so for 11 years, from 10 years old to 21, I'm reading biographies. I was personal development groupie,
Yep.
not groupie, what do they call it? Personal development junkie, right?
Yep.
And so, and my dad always said it was the books you read, the people you hang around with, hang around winners, hang around people you want to be like. And he'd also say, if you have to cross a minefield, right? And life is a series of minefields, right? Those struggles. Find somebody that's already crossed it. Find somebody that's done what you want to do and follow in their footsteps. You do those three things, you can do anything. And so at 21, I see the Olympics again. I'm a bench warmer in my college soccer team. Coach said, you get to play only when we're winning by 2 goals because we're a threat to our own team. I mean, that's what he said. Yeah, but at least I was on the team now. I had a uniform. Yeah. I had a uniform to go with me. Before I was sitting on the bench with no uniform. And so I'm 21 and I'm watching the Olympics, 1984 Sarajevo Olympics, and I see Scott Hamilton, the figure skater, win the gold medal. And everything changed at that moment because my image of what an Olympian was like Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? Plus a few more muscles, right? Huge, strong. And here, Scott Hamilton, he's like 110 pounds soaking wet and maybe 5 feet tall, and changed my paradigm. And I thought, man, if that little guy can win, I can at least play. I'm being the next ones no matter what. It's a done deal. I just got to find a sport. And so I always had
So
go ahead.
Just to pause for a minute.
Yeah.
And this is important, I think, to hear that, like, Ruben had the dream, but had no sport. I just want to make sure we pause on that for a minute. That did not have a sport. So keep going with your story there of how do you find a sport? That's critical.
Sure. So I played soccer all my life. I was born in Argentina. We're all soccer fanatics. You do anything long enough, you pick up skills. I'm pretty good with a soccer ball, but the other guy always got to the ball first because I was a slowpoke. Mm-hmm. I was still on the bench. Very frustrating. So I pick. I see Scott Hamilton. I get inspired, and my first book that I wrote is called The Courage to Succeed. And I believe you got to have 2 types of courage to reach your goals or dreams. You got to have the courage to get started, and everything's hard at the beginning because you don't have any skills. So you have to have the courage to endure, to stay in the game long enough, to learn the skills, and then you use the skills to reach the dream. And so the courage to get started comes from believing it's possible. You believe something's possible, hey, I'll give it a shot. Courage to not quit, that comes from your desire. You want something badly enough, ain't nothing going to make you quit. And so I always had the desire, but I didn't have the belief. Now I see Scott Hamilton and boom, I got the belief, I'm ready to take action. And I've got a goal with a deadline, right? In 4 years, I'm either in or out, so there's no time to waste. I went to the library because I got to find me a sport, right? It's not going to be soccer.
Off the list, yep.
I got this big book about the Olympics. I'm looking through the summer sports. Took me 5 minutes to realize, forget it. You got to be Superman to do any of these things, right? You got to lift cars and run 100 miles an hour and jump over houses. I couldn't do any of that stuff. And I got down, right? My belief took a hit, okay? And then I started looking at the list of the winter sports, and the analytical side of my brain woke up, and I thought, wait a minute. I'm about to put together a plan for the next 4 years. Probably makes sense to base the plan on my strengths. My strengths, not athleticism. I'm just okay athlete. My nickname, by the way, in high school became Bulldog. I mean, other kids started calling me Bulldog because I was tenacious, because I was so, I decided I wouldn't quit anymore, right? After reading those 12 years old, I decided quitting ain't going to happen. So now I'm looking at these winter sports and I'm thinking, wait, my superpower is tenacity, perseverance.
Yes.
And so I thought, I need to find a sport that's so tough. Sports got so many broken bones in it. There'll be lots of quitters, right? That way, that's a place where my superpower will stand out. So I'll just outlast everybody. I'll ride the attrition rate all the way to the top. And so now I'm looking for tough sports.
Right, the attrition rate. I love that.
Ski jump, bobsled, luge. I lived in Houston, Texas at the time, never skied before. The only ice I'd ever seen was in my iced tea. So ski jump, forget it. That would have been suicide. So that's out. Bobsled, where are you going to find 3 other nuts in Houston want to do the bobsled? I mean, you got to go to Jamaica for that, right? So that left the luge. I'd never seen it on TV at that point in my life. If I had, I wouldn't have done it. I'm not that crazy. I just had a picture of a guy on a luge. I thought that looks really tough. That's the one for me. That's how I picked my sport. And I didn't even know where the track was. And so I wrote Sports Illustrated a letter to ask them, this is before the internet, right? 1984, I wrote them a letter. Where do you go learn how to luge? Signed, Ruben, right there. Boom, right? Bottom line, don't waste time. And they wrote back and they They said Lake Placid, New York. That's where the track is. And they sent me this picture of a guy in a luge. And as soon as I got that picture, I framed it, stuck it right in front of my bed, lived at home with my parents, and just in front of my bed. And first person I saw in the morning when I woke up was the Luge Man, right? I didn't know this guy's names. I just call him the Luge Man. And that's my website now, thelugeman.com, right? The Iceman was taken. Some ice cream company or something. I don't know. But the Luge Man. So I wake up, I see him. He reminded me, hey, I'm going for the Olympics. Got to work out, got to eat right, got to hang around winners, read good books, right, for the mental side. And at night, before I shut off the lights, same thing. That's what I dreamt about the Olympics, kept me focused, out of sight, out of mind. You got to keep your goals in front of you. Otherwise, life happens, right?
Yes.
And
I'll get busy.
Yeah, you get busy and years may go by and you forget, right? And it's gone.
That's so, there's so much within that to unpack, right? I think the belief stuff, is the critical piece, one of the critical elements. There's lots of critical elements, right? But what sticks out to me is that the courage to start and courage to endure, right? That's a belief in oneself. And sometimes it's not even belief in oneself. It's just like, I'm going to do it anyway. Did you, when you look at that, you start and you go at the Lake Placid and you start doing all this stuff, did you have those moments where you're like, I'm trying to achieve this goal in 4 years, but I don't feel like it anymore. Like I don't want to. Or was that you were so determined it was
no. That was
non-negotiable.
That was never a question. So I call Lake Placid, and in fact, the belief comes from the books you read and the people you hang around with, consistently and persistently for a long period of time. It's not an overnight thing. It took me, it was 11 years from 10 years old to when I made the decision, right? But I was growing on the inside. And I was starting to take more risks, and life was starting to get more interesting, and I started to believe more in myself. And my dad, he said, look, you want to hang around winners, hang around people that are successful, right? People you respect. You don't hang around a bunch of whiners and complainers. If that's all you do, as soon as you try to do something special, they're going to pull you back down because they think you're making them look bad. That's how small-minded they are. And so he said, you're going to feel uncomfortable trying to, approach these, big people. These successful people, you'll feel uncomfortable, you'll feel awkward, you'll feel like you don't belong, but force yourself to do it, because if you do, it'll rub off on you, okay? You'll start thinking big. You'll start asking they ask different questions. Successful people, they ask questions like, why not me? Why not now? Why not? Those questions get your mind thinking about possibilities, right?
So true.
And you wake up in the middle of the night, with these great ideas. And so I did that, and he said something that made so much sense. He said, it'll rub off on you. And he says, when those people start believing in you, you'll start believing in yourself because you respect their opinion, right? See? And hanging around winners is the biggest thing you can do. Listening to these podcasts, you're hanging around a couple of winners here just by, electrons getting shared around, right? And so you don't have to go meet them personally. You can read a book about them, right? That's the biggest. So you become like the people you associate with because you pick up their habits, all right? And the best way to remember it, and this is true, okay? This is not just trying to be funny. The best diet in the world is hanging around skinny people, okay? You hang around skinny people, you'll be exercising more, you'll be eating salads. Man, the pounds will just melt off. You won't even notice it. But you become like those. So if you're going to become like somebody, why not become like somebody that's already done what's in your heart, right? What you want to do. And so that's all I did. And I went to Lake Placid. Actually, I call Lake Placid, right?
It's a good story. Yeah.
I'm an athlete here in Houston. I want to learn how to luge. So I'm in the Olympics in 4 years. Will you help me? And the guy goes, how old are you? And I said, 21. And he starts laughing. Just forget it, man. You're too old. We start them off when they're 8, 9, 10 years old. Sometimes they come in at 5 years old. At your age, you should have 10 years experience. There's no way. I didn't know what to do. This guy's laughing at my dream. The only thing I knew was hanging up the phone. That's not an option, right? That'd be the end of the dream. So I just kept talking to him, talking. Finally, he must have gotten fed up because he goes, we got a camp coming up in a few weeks. Be there. But before you come, you need to know two things. Number one, you want to do it at your age. You want to do it in just 4 years. It's brutal. 9 out of 10 people quit. Oh, he said that. I started smiling. I thought, man, this works right into my plan. This is awesome. Thank you, guy. Yes. And so I said, what's the second thing? He goes, expect to break some bones. And I said, great. And he got real quiet, and he comes back. He goes, "What's wrong with you, man? I mean, I just told you you're going to break some bones. I made you happy." And I said, "Look, I hope it's 10 times harder what you're telling me, okay? Because the harder it is, the easier it is for me, because I'm not a quitter. I'm bulldog, okay?" Yeah. I was praying that some of the Germans would quit because they totally dominate the sport. I didn't pray hard enough. They show up, they race, pick up their medals. Then you get excited and they go home.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Another day at the track.
Yeah, right. Another day. Yeah. And so I went. And it's a couple of months after I saw Scott Hamilton on TV. I'm Lake Placid, and it's springtime. So imagine a luge track without the ice. It's just concrete. We're going to go from the half-mile point on the old bobsled track on wheeled sleds, 50, 55 miles an hour.
Yeah, because there's no ice at that point. It's just cement, right?
Yeah, it's cement.
It's just cement.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jeez Louise.
So it's
that's even a track, but that's scarier.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Cement.
I only did that for 2 weeks and no more. But this was to learn the basics of how to drive a sled. But think about it. If you got wheels, you got traction, right? I mean, it's going to go where you tell it to go. You really got to mess up to crash there. On the ice, it's nuts. It's exactly the difference between walking and skating. I mean, because that sled's just going all over the place. And so they put me in a class with 15 other guys, and we're going to go, 50, 55 miles an hour on the concrete on wheels. All we're wearing is tennis shoes, shorts, and a T-shirt. That's it, and a helmet. But that was just for decoration,
nice.
Yeah, somebody said that's just to make the lawyers happy, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Makes them feel better about the whole thing. But and they said, "Hey, yeah, you crash it out here on the concrete. It's we call that the weeding out process in the sport of luge, right?" So every day, less people showing up for practice out of those 15. By the end of the first season, I'm the only one left in that group. I couldn't believe it. I mean, these guys quitting on their dream. That winter, I'm back learning on ice, and that was brutal. And the guy, look, I got ahead of myself. When I hung up the phone, right, this guy's telling me you're going to break some bones, blah, blah, blah. He says, "Look, it takes 10 years to learn this sport, okay? And we're going to have to cram it into 2 years for you because in the last 2 years, you got to be competing in the World Cup circuit to try to be one of the top 50 in the world." Back then, top 50 went, 51 watched it on TV. And so you got to do that. And so you're going to get hurt a lot because we're going to move you up way too fast. But that he didn't. I'm glad he tried to talk me out of it, right? But I hang up and the reality hit. I thought, wait a minute. He didn't say I might break some bones. He said I would break some bones, right? So how am I going to handle it when I break a bone? How am I going to do that? So you got to, you hope for the best, but you prepare for the worst, right? Hopefully. And so him trying to talk me out of it gave me an opportunity to put on mental armor because it made me realize it's going to be tough, a lot tougher than I thought. So I got to be ready. It's going to be war, right? And so what am I going to do when I break a bone? And I thought, I've broken bones before, you put a cast on for 6 weeks, take off the cast, it's healed up and stronger than before. So when you think about it, it's just a temporary inconvenience. So I reframed it. And so a bone was going to be a temporary inconvenience. It wasn't going to be, that's it. And so meanwhile, these other guys are quitting because they got a bruise. I mean, maybe he didn't try to talk them out. I don't know. Maybe they didn't want it badly enough. They didn't have the desire. Maybe, I don't know. But first 2 years were brutal. Broke my foot twice, my knee, my elbow, my hand, my thumb, a couple of ribs. I just kept coming back. And then the last 2 years, at first I was crashing 4 out of 5 times on the ice. That hurt, okay? I mean, bruised, complete. You couldn't even see my arm because it was all bruised, both sides. That's how it was for 20 years, actually. I just had,
over the 4 decades.
Yeah. Oh, seriously. And so, but I just kept coming back, and then the last 2 years, you start competing in the World Cup circuit. And that was a mental struggle, a psychological struggle, because imagine you just got you're 16 years old, you just got your driver's permit. They put you in this room and you start looking around and there's Mario Andretti and AJ Foyt and all these great guys. And you're going to have to race them at Indy 500. It's like, I just got my driver's permit. Well, that's about the level loser I was after 2 years of beginning training. And I was in over my head. And, but you could do whatever it takes for as long as it takes. And I got to play with the big boys 4 times, 4 Olympics, Calgary, 88, Albertville, France, 92. Then I quit for about 6 years. I was done. Then my coach talked me into coming back for Salt Lake. And so I started training for Salt Lake City and made that one. And that's when I started speaking professionally in 2002, about 22 years ago. And so I did Salt Lake City. And then for the next 6 years, I'm building my business. So I didn't slide anymore. I retired again. And I'm kind of like a boxer, right? I keep retiring. And then I started training for Vancouver. And so when I went to Salt Lake City, I was 39. My previous Olympics was 10 years before, okay? And so I'm 39 instead of 29. I walk into the Olympic Village, and it was like a shock, right? I felt just like a dad visiting his kids in college, right? Because everybody else is in their 20s, and everybody's asking me the same thing. What are you coaching?
Who are you here to coach?
Yeah, I said no, I'm competing, and they actually look at me up and down and go, "Come on, what are you coaching?" They didn't even believe me, right? And so then I was 39, and then when I competed in Vancouver, I was 47. By then, they thought I was coach's dad. Okay. Yes. Now I'm 61. When I was training, I was in Austria in November, and then in Park City, Utah in January and February. I'm older now than 90% of the coaches. Okay.
Yes.
There's very few coaches that are even, and so if I make the next one, it's going to be only the top 25 in the world get to go to Milan. Okay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I have to be better than I've ever been. I'm sliding better and more consistently than ever. Okay. No bruises after the season, not a single bruise. But I'm not there yet. But coach says, you got a shot. You're gaining on these people because you're improving still. You're mentally stronger. And you're like a really old, because I took these long breaks. He says, you're like a really old car that's been in the garage a lot, right? You don't have that many miles. I told him, okay, I choose to take that as a compliment.
Yes. Reframe again.
There you go. But if I make it, it'll be awesome. It'll be the first person to ever do 5 Winter Olympics in 5 different decades. And it'll be the oldest Winter Olympian in history, break a 100-year-old record. And so yeah, exciting.
So here's something that I hear a lot, and it kind of disappoints me. And I guess coaches watching this, parents watching this, if you happen to be a parent, athletes watching this right now, I hear a lot about, that you hear those stories about some kid walking into a classroom and saying, I want to play in the NBA, or I want to play in the major leagues, or I want to do something like that. And you hear often that then the comment by the teacher or something like, or a coach is like, that'll never happen. Set your expectations realistic, be realistic, right? And I see that all the time of like when I'm working with athletes too, where it's like they want to go to that next level, right? And maybe it's from high school to college, or they want to go try out the professional route and things like that. And because of the way we're trained and just conditioned, it's like, well, it can follow with like, well, that's not possible. So we take our dream and we automatically discount it and take it away.
And it's like a little piece of your heart that just got ripped off.
Yes. And so you did that. You fought through no matter what. But if I'm a kid watching right now, or I'm an athlete watching, I don't care if you're a pro athlete and you're AAA trying to make it to the majors, or you're a college kid trying to make it to the pros, or a high school kid trying to make it to college. Or maybe if you're a coach right now and one of your players wants to have that happen, like what advice would you give that player, that coach, to like push through and either give that encouragement to themselves or to others if I'm a coach, or I don't know, just like be that athlete to have that mentality of like, no, forget what you're saying. Like I don't
you can
care,
do it.
But like
you can do it. It's powerful. Okay. Especially when it comes from somebody that you have respect for. And so hopefully, there's good coaches and there's bad coaches. Okay. I mean, there's good and bad in every field, but you want to make sure you have a coach that's positive and sees the potential, right? If there's potential, that'll let you know. And when my coach told me, and my coach is he competed for the U.S. in the Lillehammer Olympics, got 4th place in the doubles. So he's got fruit on the trees. Okay. He's not a theorist, but even more importantly, very few luge coaches understand the mental side of this. I mean, you think everybody would know it, but even at an Olympic level, they don't get it, right? Or they don't buy into it. And in a sport like luge, the mental is huge, okay? And so he understands it. And he said, you got a shot, right? And I told him, that number that you have in your mind, that percentage that you're thinking about, don't tell me, okay? Because if you tell me it's a 10% shot, I may not even go for it. right? If you tell me it's a 90% shot, I may not work hard enough. So let's just go with you believe that it's possible. That's all I need to know. I got the desire. Let's just give it our all and let's find out where the chips fall.
See, and I like that. I like that mentality because I think the hardest thing is like we read the stats and we do all that stuff, right? So it kind of kills it out of the gate that like only 1% of, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, forget it. But that mentality of like, if you can find someone to encourage you, that's great. But it starts with what you've done. What I hear is like encouraging yourself and being like, well, it doesn't matter what the stats say. It doesn't matter what people think. It's like, I'm going to choose to do it anyway. And the other thing I have is in like, it's getting to work.
Oh yeah.
It's like doing the work and doing, like you said, whatever is possible to make that happen. I think that's the other critical piece of like belief in oneself, what I hear from your story, that courage to keep going, but it's followed up by like action.
Yeah, massive action. And you got to be willing to do what the competition is not willing to do. Okay. And if you're listening to this, I hope you don't believe in life balance. Okay. Because if you're a successful person, you don't have life balance. All right. Because you figured out what's important to you. And that's where you're putting all your chips. That's where you put, I don't watch TV. I mean, I don't even know how to turn on my TV, okay, and which is helpful. I mean, I could ask my kids, but I choose not to. And I'm always reading and listening to biographies. There's this great podcast called Founders. If you go to Founders, Foundres, podcast.com, this guy reads a biography every week, and then he unpacks them,
So
right?
cool.
That's all he does. And he's passionate. And he's on like I think he's almost hit 350 of them already.
Wow.
And so now, for example, you listen to Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? So that kid needs to study Arnold and study Kobe and study Michael Jordan and LeBron James and study and start seeing the similarities, right? And so that's what it takes, So when the dream team went to the Olympics for the first time, right? It was Jordan, Magic, a few of those guys. Jordan and somebody else, I think it was Scottie Pippen. When they went there, they said they couldn't believe how little the other guys practiced. Okay, the other guys in the dream team. They said,
the other guys on the dream
team. They says, man, no wonder. They say, and they especially talked about Drexler. Just Clyde Drexler. He's got so much natural, talent, but he's lazy. And so now I see why we can beat all these teams because they don't practice nearly as hard as we do. See? And so when that kid starts studying these people, he'll start becoming like those people.
Yes.
And so this guy that does the podcast, it's so cool because he's done so many of them now that, he might be talking about Arnold Schwarzenegger, but then he says, hey, he starts connecting the dots. He says, see what he did there? That's just like when Steve Jobs was faced with that situation and he did the same thing. And that's like Madame Curie did the same thing, right? And so you start seeing that, wow. And the other thing that I love about biographies, and it's cool, the guy actually echoed it. He said, the biographies always show the struggle, right? And you start realizing that if you have a dream, you got to be willing to fight for the dream. Okay, that's part of the deal. The struggle is there to make you stronger. And so you start realizing that I'm not the only one that's struggling. I'm not the only one that's pulling a hamstring or getting hurt or having a setback or getting sick or whatever. And so you start realizing that that's part of the deal. And so, okay, if that's part of the deal, then if I want to be the champ, I got to be able to outwork competition and not listen to those naysayers. And if I get a coach that tells me, forget it, then fire him. Okay. I mean, find a positive one.
Yeah. And if, listen, if you're an athlete right now, listening, or even if you're a coach, it doesn't matter what you're a business person. I don't know there's lots of people watching this. Well, let's say you're a coach and you want to become a pro coach one day, or you're an athlete and you want to get to whatever level. If you're finding those naysayers around you, like Ruben says, just email us. We'll tell you can do it, right?
Yeah.
We'll encourage you.
You have to associate with winners, but you also have to disassociate from the losers, okay? Mm-hmm. Because they have power, okay? They have power to create doubt in your heart. They have power to steal your dream, cause you to quit, right? So you can't. They don't qualify, right? Those naysayers at the water cooler, they're always complaining about stuff. They don't qualify to get any of your time. Okay. Yeah. Hopefully they'll change, but don't even try to change them because, a non-dreamer, which is most everybody out there, will never be understood by a dreamer, and a dreamer won't be understood by average people. They just won't. They think we're nuts. Fine, think whatever you want. Meanwhile, I'll just keep fighting for Olympics number 5.
Yes, and so you reminded me of this. After my senior year of high school, I think I told you this, but I was contemplating maybe trying out for college, right? Because I was a walk-on, or I ended up being a walk-on, I should say. And it was after the very last game of my summer ball after my senior year. So I'm a month away from going to college. Oh. And my that summer coach walked up to me and he literally looked me in the eye. He goes, "You need to try out at Creighton."
Oh, cool.
He goes, "You have to try out."
That guy's a winner coach.
He's a winner coach, right? Of like just that encouragement. And he didn't know what my path was.
And maybe you didn't even think about it. It was thanks to him.
It was thanks to him, like that. I was like, "Oh, I should do this." I was thinking about it, but that was like the tipping point or the last straw that like made me like go, "Okay, well, we'll go do that." And I think that's the power of like coaching, encouragement, things like that.
Man, yeah.
Talk to me about some of your coaches that you've had over the years, because starting so late, how did those coaches kind of help you prepare, like physically, mentally, technically, more importantly, mentally, like for that? Like, how do they interact with you to give you feedback or whatever to get you to that? Because he made a decision, and 4 years later, he was in the Olympics. Mm-hmm. That's crazy. So surround yourself with great coaches. So talk to me about like maybe your first coach, or like how did he help you? And
my first coach was Dmitry. He was from Ukraine, and he was up at in Lake Placid, and Dmitry was like a youth pastor. Okay, I mean, super happy, make it fun. You know, he was the coach of the junior national team, U.S. junior national team, and so. You know, when you're coaching little kids, it's not about the wins. It's about let's have fun. And along the ways, let's teach them, mental toughness and skills. But we got to keep it fun. Otherwise, they're going to leave. You're competing against the internet, right? And TV. Mm-hmm. And so it was so much fun with him. It was great. And it's funny. My nickname was Bulldog because I was so tenacious. But it's funny. I would always look for the coach or mentor, but I was so hard-headed that I wouldn't listen to them, right? I learned everything the hard way. As for the first 3 Olympics, I was that way. Mm. And Dmitry, a couple of years ago, he was saying, your nickname shouldn't have been Bulldog because you were only half Bulldog, okay? The other half was Mule, okay? You were stubborn like a mule. If you'd have just listened to me and applied right away, then you wouldn't have gotten hurt nearly as much, okay? You took the wrong route. But you were a champ because you didn't quit, but it could have been a lot easier. And then on the way to the 4th Olympics, my first 3 top 50 got to go. I was always, when you do the math, I was always about 45, right? The Vancouver Olympics, my 4th one, only the top 40 were going to get to go. So that was going to be a stretch. And so I realized, okay, I felt like I had my back to the wall. I was already older than everybody and less experienced. And so I realized, okay, I just made a decision. I just promised myself whatever coach says from now on, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to do it on faith. Okay. I'm not going to try to analyze or try to, dissect or whatever. I'm just going to do it. If coach says, shave your head and wear lipstick, that'll make you faster. I'm going to do it right now. I mean, that was the new Ruben.
Thank goodness he didn't have to do that.
No, thank God. That would have looked really bad. But I made it by the skin on my teeth, but I made it. Right. And so now I need to reach a much higher level, top 25. And so I'm doing things that I've never done before, right? I've got a breathing coach, right, from Austria once a week. We do like breathing sessions, right? Because breathing is important in any sport, but it's super important in luge. So we're doing that. And I got a neuro coach that's teaching me, all these, we've always used visualization, right, for our sport, but he's taking it to another level. I mean, we're doing visualization with laying on different surfaces where you're unbalanced so that you're trying to train your brain to operate and, in different scenarios. Yes. And we used to do a little bit of that with Dmitry. Well, the first time we went over there, he would set up an obstacle course inside like a basketball court. indoor basketball court. He'd set it all up, but in between every apparatus or every challenge, you had to do like when you put the bat on your head and you spin around to be dizzy. He wanted us to be able. He says that's stuff the Sputnik astronauts did to help them develop a feeling of where they are in space. Right? He called it disorientation training, and we're kind of doing that kind of stuff, with Nathaniel, yes. Right? With Nathaniel, no, not Nathaniel,
with Nate. Yep,
Nate.
Yeah.
Right. Yep. So I'm doing that. He's got me doing all this juggling. I don't know if you've ever seen Formula One series on Netflix.
Drive to Survive.
Drive to Survive. It's great. Okay, they just follow they just follow these 20 drivers. And they're always juggling, right? I wonder why the heck do these guys juggle? And it's because juggling, turns out, it helps you with space perception and with reflexes and with balance too. And
interesting,
yeah. And so I barely knew how to juggle, 2 months ago when I started working with him, or 6 weeks ago, whatever. So he's taken me through 10 levels of juggling, right? And so the first one was, 3 baseballs. No, but it was just taking it boom, 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 boom. Because you're not ready to do 3, 2. You're just trying to get your mind used to doing that. And then higher, higher, higher. And then the next, like last week or a couple of weeks ago, it was stand on a wobble board. You're staying on a wobble board and you're trying to get it to 15 seconds of juggling.
Amazing. Yep.
Right. It took me about a week and a half, but I got it. Right. And so I got it. And so then the next one was, okay, now we're going to have just get a pail or a box or something and fill it with a bunch of different balls, light balls, like racquetball, baseball, tennis ball, all kinds. So they're different sizes and different weights. And now you got to, try to do 15 on the wobble board. Okay, that took me like 2 weeks to get through that one. I just did it a couple of days ago. And so now the next one is walking upstairs, right? Up steps, not down because you'll kill yourself, but going up, right? And going down and trying to make like a little obstacle. So what are you doing with that? Well, you're training your brain to operate, to work better, right? To optimize, to the neural pathways are going to work better. And so when I get on the track, it's going to be better. Will it be good enough? I don't know. We'll find out, won't we? So that's what you do. You do whatever I hope none of the other losers are watching this.
Exactly.
Because I just I'm not telling anybody about this. But it's do whatever you can. Do what the competition is not willing to do.
Yeah.
And pray that it works out.
Well, it's a huge thing too. Of like, I think as coaches too, coaches fight that a little bit of like, I'm trying to tell them they're not listening. So there's this balance that comes in, right, of like, you still have to coach and train, and then as an athlete, you got to meet them halfway and, right, be coachable, be open.
Absolutely.
And you learn that after you were learning the whole way. I know, don't discount yourself that way, but like, you could have learned faster had you been more open to.
I wasn't coachable. I wasn't coachable.
You were coachable to a point, and then you were like, that's enough. I've overanalyzed it.
Yeah.
I've made the decision. And
I thought I was smarter than the coach. I mean, it's crazy. And so I'm so glad you brought that up, because I've got Jonathan, my luge coach, right? He was also, he was an Olympian in luge, but he's also an All-American lacrosse goalie. Okay. And you need to have him on the show. He's written a book on coaching, and he lives up in Calgary. But both Jonathan and this other friend that I have, who he played Wimbledon. He's from South Africa, Warwick. You ever meet Warwick?
Yep.
Okay. So super great guy. He played Wimbledon. Okay. He was from South Africa, and then he coached. And he actually coached this French girl, got her from like 250th in the world, bumped her up to like top 5 or something. I mean, this guy's got fruit on the trees, right? And both of these guys as top coaches, they are frustrated as they can be, because it's so hard for them to find coachable athletes, because the kids think it's going to be like a video game and it's going to be easy. And he said, and their parents are backing them up. Instead of backing the coach up, they're backing the kid up, right? And giving them the easy way out. And he says, it's so hard to find a kid that wants it enough, that's willing to do what it takes to reach. Everybody wants to be a professional tennis player, let's say, right? But very few are willing to pay the price. And so you got to get the combination. A kid with the right parents. When I was a kid, gosh, My dad never missed a soccer practice or a soccer game, even though I was on the bench the whole time in the Houston heat and humidity. Okay, the guy was a saint. But on the way home, he didn't tell me you can do it, you could do it, you're a winner. He analyzed the few minutes that I got to play, and he goes, "Look, see when you did this, what coach think about that?" And we analyze it. And how can we be better? What can we do? Is there a drill we can do in the backyard, to help you out with that?
Yeah.
So he was looking for ways to make me better, not just give me a little ribbon for 27th place, right?
Very true.
And parents that do that today are rare.
Yes.
So you got to get the trifecta: a good parent, the good kid, and then the good coach.
That's very true. But I think it's it's just like we talked. When you combine that I've got a dream, I want to achieve something. It's that understanding and studying others to understand like what they did to get there, and then the success comes in the replication of the behaviors of those types of people applicable to your sport or school or a business or like whatever you want to do, and that combination of surrounding yourself with the right people, I think, is a massive thing, right? And the more I think we can educate our kids on like this is what it takes, this is what it's about, the better off we're going to be for kind of the whole.
Yeah. You've met Grayson, right, my son? So we moved here from Houston. We moved to Colorado Springs in 2010. I just couldn't stand the heat and humidity anymore. It had nothing to do with the Olympic Training Center being here. It's just escape the mosquitoes, and so. So Grayson, our son, was 6 at the time, and Gabriella, she was 10. And we went to the Olympic Training Center one day, and he decided he wanted to do judo, right? And so, great. And then he talked his sister into doing it too. And so they started, and it turns out the Olympic Training Center has a grassroots team coached by the Olympic coach. I mean, the first American to win an Olympic medal in the sport of luge, right? I mean, and he coaches and the resident athletes, the judokas are there. And if a bunch of kids show up, he'll pull a couple of these residence athletes that have just finished their workout, and twice a week they're training there. And I've seen him kick out. He runs a tight ship too. I've seen him kick out black belts for cussing. He says that doesn't go here. I don't care what belt you're wearing. You're disrespecting the belt. You're disrespecting everybody and yourself, your family. So you're out of here. And so first thing he told us, Ed Liddy, he told me, he says, "Look, we're going to have to manage Grayson's expectations because his sister's 4 years older. Girls mature faster, so he's not getting the results she's getting." He goes, "Got it, coach. Whatever you say goes." And by then, I was just going with what the coach said, right? He says, "As a father, you have to put a lipstick and shave your head." And so every 3 months or so, they would have our club, the kids would have tournaments against other kids in other dojos here, and mainly here in Wyoming a couple times, in Texas a few times, but mostly here. And Gabriella, his older sister, she had this little shimmy move she'd do and throw the other person off balance, and she's just throwing them left and right. She's winning medals like a German in the luge, right? Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, Grayson, he is clueless, okay? The first year and a half, the first 6 tournaments, he didn't win a single bout, all right? I mean, I would tell him, "Grayson, man, you know what the ceiling of every dojo in Colorado looks like, because you're always on your back. but don't quit on me, buddy. I mean, you're a champion. We're all bulldogs here. No chihuahuas. Just keep going, and it's going to pop out one day. It's growing on the inside. It's going to pop out." And he just kept on. And before the 7th tournament, coach said, "Hey, he's starting to get it. I think we might get a nice surprise on this tournament." So on the 7th one, he wins the gold, right? And he brings that gold medal. He's all poofed up, he's showing it to me. Yeah. Medal's nice, okay? But you know what? You know what I'm really proud of? I'm proud that you didn't quit when 99% of the people would quit. That's what makes you a champion. It's that attitude, that stick-to-it, that character. You do that in other parts of your life, and, man, the sky's the limit, all right? And so both of them ended up winning the state championship twice, Gabriella and Grayson. And then Grayson switched over to wrestling as a freshman in high school. Okay, so judo, you're standing up, and wrestling, you're bent over. So he had to overcome these habits, right? But long story short, we homeschooled them both. But he went to he got to compete in the Monument School and Monument high school. By the second year, he made state. Okay, because I told him, I went to the coach and I said, look, you'd expect me to say good things about my kid. I'm going to tell you two things. He's a hard worker and he's coachable. That's it. All right. And he is. He'll outwork competition and he does not complain. Mm-hmm. And, he was the captain of the team by the second year. Okay. Even though he didn't go to school there. And he made state and now he's at Texas A&M on the wrestling team there. So how cool is that? But it's what we're talking about. You got to have the parents that teach straight, right? And you got to have the kid that's got, the work ethic and the desire and a coach, an Olympic coach is pretty good.
That helps. That definitely helps. But I think it's to your point, they've got fruit on the tree, right? They've been there, they've done it, they've experienced it. And it's like whatever you can soak up from each coach, even though you might not agree certain points, like they're trying to develop you, grow you, make you into a better athlete, person, whatever.
I'm going to talk. We don't have to get into the Austria stuff if you don't want. But when I was in Park City in January, in February, I pulled a groin muscle, right? It's really a luge. Your legs are sticking out and you do a lot of driving with the legs, right? Not all, but and sometimes you get yourself into bad and you have to crank it and, you pull a groin muscle. And so that was pretty much it for that season for me, right? Because it's not smart to. But when you get hurt, you don't go home. I went to the track. I stayed. I stayed even though I wasn't going to be losing, and I would go to the track with coach, right? And I'd stand on the, and somebody just went by, and you debrief them right when they finish their run. You talk to them on the walkie-talkie, and then you'd say, okay, Ruben. He has to, the best line from where they're going is they have to be, early over there and then like 2 inches from the right over there, right? And so now watch the next one. You tell me if they did it right because I had to develop my vision to see from this different. So I'm seeing the sport from a different angle now. I'm hurt, but I'm learning things that I wouldn't have learned from the sled, right? And just a couple of hours, a few days, and I learned some super basic things that I should have learned 40 years ago. I mean, basic just by sitting down with coach. So when your kid or somebody in your team gets hurt, take advantage of that hurt. Have them shatter you around. And they're going to learn, things that they probably wouldn't have learned. And I think they're going to start respecting you more because they're going to see what it's like to be the coach. They're going to see everything from a different angle.
I like that. Well, it reminded me too of, I just interviewed Jason Terry, so 19-year NBA vet, and great guy. He goes by Jet, and he's won an NBA championship, college NCAA championship with Arizona. So he's got a great story. Anyway, one of the things that I thought was really interesting is it was towards the end of his career, right? So the last couple of years, the coaches would bring him in, even though he's still a player, or I guess just a player, into the coaches' meetings because they wanted to. He had the desire or the dream to become an NBA coach one day, and he'd let them know that. But then they started bringing him into the team meetings so he could see and start understanding this is what we talk about as coaches, and this is how we view strategy and X's and O's and all these different things. And you reminded me of that now, and I'm like, it's such a cool opportunity for coaches to you don't have to tell them all your secrets or I guess complain about the players in front of them, even though you may complain about players, but it's so interesting to give them a glimpse inside. I think it's a really fascinating point. And Jason Terry got that opportunity.
And I bet he would have been a better player if he'd have done that while he was playing.
Yeah. And he said he learned a ton because he was super passionate, just absorbing the info anyway for his whole career.
Yeah.
But that was next level of why are they making this decision or that decision? And it's so interesting.
So Jonathan, this American coach, did lacrosse and everything. He lives in Calgary. And I was training in Austria, in Innsbruck in November. And I got hurt. I dislocated my elbow through a freak accident. I mean, I got hit by a sled. But after every session in Austria, I would debrief with Jonathan, on Zoom, right? Because he understands the mental side. And so he would tell me things that other coaches weren't telling me. And so I'm trying to pull from everywhere. And when I got hurt, he said, don't change your plane ticket, okay? Don't come right back home. Stay over there, for as long as you were supposed to stay, which was another week, I think, or a week and a half. He says, you don't even realize this, but you're going through the mourning process. You're mourning the possible death of your Olympic dream because you hurt your arm. You don't even know whether you're going to be able to come back. And so stay at the track, and all the other athletes from all different countries, they want to hear what happened. They want to, they're your friends. Hang around them, hang around the coaches and, and shadow them, right? Because you're going to learn stuff there, and take advantage of this time. And so what actually happened was I'm carrying my sled to about 20 yards away from the exit of the track, and they're not supposed to let another sled come, but they're supposed to, the track is closed till I and the sled exit the track. Well, they didn't. They just let the next guy go, and it hit me, and I went flying through the air and broke my elbow. So this wasn't my fault or the Australian kid that no, it was just it was this idiot up at the tower that wasn't doing his job. He's probably texting his girlfriend instead of looking at the monitors. And so I wanted to kill this guy. I'm just glad I didn't see him, because it would have been bad. I mean, I'm not even I'm a lover, not a fighter, okay? Yes. But I was mad. And so one thing that the coach didn't tell me, do you know Don Akers? Okay, Don Akers, he's an ex-boxer, and he's another guy that really understands the mind. And Don, when I told him the story, he says, you know what? The other reason why it was important for you to be there, even though you were hurt, is because it kept you focused in the future instead of wallowing in your misery. He kept your focus that way. Ooh, that's so powerful.
That's good.
Yeah. And so during that week or so that I was there, just with my arm in a cast, that anger, that fury that I had, and this is not a conscious thing that I tried to do, because I don't think you can do this consciously, but somehow, because of the environment I was in with all the rest of my luge friends, that anger and that fury got harnessed, and it became determination, right? And right now I'm finally, I was able to come back, right? I was able to train afterwards. I'm actually glad it happened now, okay, in retrospect, because it's made me a lot more focused and a lot more determined than I've ever been. And I'm working out harder, and I'm doing things that, it's up to my chances, right, to make Milan. Yeah. So isn't that crazy? So in the moment, you can't take the it's either a victory or defeat, or you're feeling great or you got hurt, but it doesn't matter in the moment. It's because 5 years from now or 5 months from now, you're going to see it with a different lens, right? And it'll make sense. So just try to stay positive and stay around those positive people. And when bad things happen, don't try to go hide in the cave, because that's the worst place you can be.
Well, it's such a good point, because it could be an injury or you're underperforming. And those are two distinct areas where you want to, at least I did back in the day, if I wasn't hitting well,
you want to hide.
I feel like hiding, when the right thing to do, not the right thing, it's just the thing to do to get me closer to my goal is to go out and hit more balls.
Yeah.
Or get in front of somebody and ask for help, or be around the game more, right?
Immerse yourself.
It's like immersed in like what we're trying to do.
Yeah. When you're down, when you're discouraged, when you're so close to quitting, the worst thing to do is try to figure it out on your own, because you'll always take the easy way out, and then you'll regret it later.
So true.
So you hang around those winners, and they will help you get through it, right? And so that's for everybody. That's for coaches. That's for athletes, for parents, for me.
Yeah.
Humans.
Oh, me too. Every human being.
Yeah.
This has been so fun. I want to be aware of your time, of course. If people want to connect with you, Ruben.
The Luge Man, thelugeband.com. The Iceman was taken. I mean, I actually get a call every couple of years, it seems like. Some guys they're looking for specialty lug nuts. They think I'm a lug nut guy.
Oh, the lug
man.
Nut guy.
No, maybe I should get into that business. I might be missing out here.
Could be a nice side hustle for you.
Yeah. Professional speaking, books, and lug nuts.
Yeah, lug nuts. It's a perfect parallel. That's so funny. Well, hey, please connect with Ruben. He's on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, everywhere as well. We'll put links so you can connect him in the show notes as well. But Ruben, man, this is interview probably number 4 or 5 over the last 12 years that I've had the business. And I'll tell you. So
we even wrote a book together. Look, this is the
together.
Polish version of a book we wrote. Oh, wow. Can you believe we ever looked that good? But anyways,
right? Look at that.
What happened?
Power
What
tie.
happened to me? You look great.
Power tie. And I'll tell you a quick story about Ruben. And I love telling the story. So the very first time I met Ruben, I drove down to Monument where he lives, and we had coffee at a place called Serrano's, and it was a bank. It's still there. It was an old bank that was turned into a coffee shop. So you could park where the drive-through banker teller thing was. But it's a cool little place, right? They roast their own coffee in Monument as well. It's kind of a cool little setup. Anyway, so we're sitting there having coffee, and it was interesting. I had two reasons for meeting Ruben that day. The first was I had a nonprofit at the time, and we'd interview athletes just to tell their story. And I had shown Ruben, I don't know if you remember this, I'd printed out a piece of paper, and on it had 10 themes that athletes deal with, right? So like transition to life after sports, or dealing with an injury, or, overcoming adversity, stuff like that. And I had shown Ruben that and asked him, would you interview for this thing? Which was right at the beginning of the conversation. He said yes without even hesitating. And I'm like, sweet. So kind of set it to the side. And then my second goal was to learn as much from him as possible, because this was probably 13 years ago before I started my business. And I was thinking about it, like, what do I want? Again, that dream of like, what do I want that to be to start my own thing?
You were still working at Western Union.
I was still working my corporate job, right? And so I was asking question, like observe, like learning. And one of the things that Ruben told me is like, when you go, you have to separate yourself from other people, right? And that can be on, the way you behave, the way you treat people, all those sorts of things. But specifically to speaking and coaching, it's like you have to have something to take with you somewhere, right? So a book or a pamphlet or a program or something, because it sets you apart, right? And we look for the same things in athletics, right? It's like, when I want to get to that next level, it's like, what makes me different than that other athlete that they can go recruit to play volleyball or baseball or whatever sport we're talking about, or go to the Olympics? What makes me different? And so you have to find that thing and take it with you. And so we talked about this sort of thing, and we get right at the end of the conversation, and I'll never forget, he looks right across the table at me and he goes, Matt, you want to write a book? And I go, excuse me? He goes, I told you, remember, that if you want to get in this business, you have to have something. Do you want to write a book? And I actually said, let me think about it. And before I said, let me think about it, I came up with every excuse in the book. Pardon the pun.
I did the same thing. Go ahead.
Did you?
When I was in that situation with somebody else in a different coffee shop.
Oh,
go ahead.
I made every excuse because I think I'd been conditioned to like, well, but that dream of writing a book, I was questioning that dream because of the way I'd been conditioned. And I started saying, Ruben, like, where would I even start? Like, what would I even write about? And I was like, publishing. I mean, who would publish these things? Do I self-publish? Do I find? I mean, that's a whole thing. And then editing. Who would edit the book? I'm literally going on and on. I don't know if you remember this or not, but it's going on and on. So I'm not crazy.
But you actually wrote one, okay? 9 out of 10 people that I meet with, they disappear.
Right.
You're one of the few that did it.
And I'm so proud of that. But I remember you interrupted me. And this is where pattern interrupt, right? Is when we have a dream of something we want to do, someone has to be there to interrupt you, or you have to do it to yourself. And you interrupted me. You said, Matt, wait, stop. And you asked me a very simple question. You said, can you write an article? And at that point, I was so flustered. This may sound ridiculous, but I go, what do you mean an article? And you said a magazine article, a newspaper article. I remember this like yesterday. It's crazy to me. Like, it was so impactful. But I'm so flustered. I ask him what an article is, and he tells me, and I say, oh, yeah, anybody can write an article. And he grabs the piece of paper with the 10 themes on it. You remember this?
Yeah.
And he turns it around, slides it back in front of me, and he says, can you write 10 articles? I say, Ruben.
They're in here, those 10 articles.
They're right there. So, and then I had the gall to say, let me think about it. And then I drove home about 50 minutes. And as soon as I got home, I remember emailing saying, I'm in, I'm doing it. And you replied saying, great, write your articles, send it to me. I'll add a word from Ruben at the back. We'll publish a book. And 3 months later, we had a book published. Yeah. And then it was put in Polish.
Yeah, I got a friend in Poland that translates my books. And so we got it in Polish.
We skipped right past
Everybody
Spanish.
in Poland knows this guy.
Yeah, we went right past Spanish.
So now let me tell you my version of the story, okay? Not what with us. I used to sell copiers in Houston. And right before the Salt Lake City Olympics, 2002, about a month before, this little kid in my neighborhood asked me to be his show and tell project in school. And so I said, sure, why not? When I came back from the Olympics. So I brought the sled, the helmet, the Olympic torch, because I was a torch bearer. I thought, no prisoners. I don't care. It's a bunch of little kids. I'm going to win, right? And so I'm competitive. And so I go. And the principal takes me to this room. There's like 200 kids sitting in the floor. And he says, you got 45 minutes. Have at them. They turned it into an assembly. I almost had a heart attack, okay? The guy that wrote The Courage to Succeed almost ran out the door because he was so scared. I said a prayer. I said, God, what do I do now? Yep. And what I felt I needed to do was just tell them your story, give them some pointers, how to make their dream come true. And I didn't die or anything. That was very exciting. And so on the way to the car, the principal's going nuts. You got a gift. You're better people we pay. You do this for a living. I said, well, you get paid for show and tell? He says, no, it's a speaking profession, man. And he was so in my face, and I always wanted to have my own business. And I thought, man, if I can sell a copying machine, I can sell a Ruben too. And this looked a lot more fun. So I quit my job 3 days later, which I don't recommend, okay? But, I worked my tail off. 3 months later, I'm on food stamps because I didn't know what – I could tell stories, but I didn't know how to build a business. Typical E-Myth stuff, right? Yep. And I found a guy in Houston, who was a successful speaker. He had fruit on the trees. He lived in the house I want to live in. He'd drive the car. And so I asked him, will you coach me? Will you teach me? We met at a coffee shop. Same thing, okay? And he, first thing out of his mouth, I don't care if he wasn't as nice as me. Yeah, because I'm such a hardhead. I need a really tough coach or else it won't. He goes, I don't care if you're a 10-time Olympian, unless you write a book, you're not, you can't make it in this business because the author is considered the authority of his subject. He wrote the book on it. It's the business card nobody throws away. I started thinking this guy must have a publishing company, but I don't care. I don't have any money for him to take. So go ahead, keep talking. And so, but I told him, look, I can't write a book because I made C's in English. Okay. So I already had built this whole case, ironclad case, why I can't do it, because that's human nature. Mm-hmm. That's what we do. Okay. If we're left alone. And he said, you got a great story. You write it down like you're writing a letter to your best friend, that kind of English. Don't try to be, fancy. And then we're going to give it to some A students and they clean it up for you. Okay. That's just grammar. Mm-hmm. And I thought, oh my God, I didn't think about that. He goes, yeah, it's called editing. All right. So shut up and sit down. It was like that. But that was The Courage to Succeed. It has been translated to 10 languages and it's opened up doors all over the world. In fact, that book, somebody in Warsaw read that book, right? The Polish version of the book. And invited us to go, and then I hooked them. I thought, hey, I got this other good book. But it opened up that door, okay? It's opened up doors everywhere because I listened to my coach. And I didn't listen to that little negative voice in my shoulder, right? That little devil was saying, you can't do it. Who do you think you are, right? Look, I'm a shy guy. I know you don't believe it watching me, okay? I'm Clark Kent, introvert as can be in real life, all right? You just get me talking about the Olympics or professional development or, how to be more successful. And it's like Clark Kent, which is the real Ruben, turns into Superman for a little bit. And I've been keynote speaker for 20 years, spoken for 100 of the Fortune 500 companies, lots of sales kickoffs because my sales background, but I talk about attitude. I talk about this kind of stuff. And so, but as soon as I step off the stage, so you got a shy guy, okay, that makes his living being a keynote speaker all over the world. You got a guy that can barely spell, who's a best-selling author with over 300,000 books sold, okay? And you got a guy that's a lousy athlete. He's a 4-time, maybe 5-time Olympian. So what's your excuse, okay? Just go for it. If it's in your heart, it's for a reason. Just dedicate your life to the pursuit of your dream. And then, your grandkids, the grandkids are going to be all around you because then you're going to have all the cool stories, right? You got to compete against that other grandkid no matter how old you are. Yeah.
So good. With that, what a great way to end it. TheLugeMan.com. Connect with Ruben on social. Ruben, my man, thank you so much, brother.
My pleasure, man.
I appreciate it.
Take care,
everybody.